Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hunter. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Most people go through life spending quarters without a second thought, tossing them into vending machines, parking meters, or leaving them as tips, never realizing that one particular quarter could be worth more than most people earn in a lifetime. Today, we're diving deep into the astonishing world of the 1998 Washington quarter, a coin so valuable that collectors are willing to pay up to $34 million to own one. Yes, you heard that right. $34 million for a coin that was originally worth just 25 cents. But before we reveal exactly why this particular quarter is worth more than a luxury mansion, a private jet, and a yacht combined, let me tell you something that will blow your mind even more. This 1998 P quarter isn't the only one hiding massive value. Stick with me until the very end, because the coins we're covering next will absolutely shock you. One of them is worth double what this quarter commands. And the final one? It's valued at a price so astronomical that most people can't even comprehend it. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's focus on this 1998 P Washington quarter first and uncover why it has become one of the most sought-after coins in American numismatic history. The year 1998 was significant for the United States Mint. It was the final year before the launch of the revolutionary 50-state quarters program that would begin in 1999 and change coin collecting forever. The Philadelphia Mint, denoted by that small p mint mark, was operating at full capacity, striking hundreds of millions of Washington quarters to meet the demands of commerce across America. On the surface, these quarters looked absolutely ordinary, featuring the classic profile of George Washington on the obverse, designed by sculptor John Flanagan back in 1932, and the majestic eagle with spread wings on the reverse. Millions upon millions of these coins poured into circulation, jangling in cash registers, filling piggy banks, and passing through countless hands without anyone suspecting that some of them contained errors so rare and so dramatic that they would eventually command prices that rival fine art and rare gemstones. Now here's where things get absolutely fascinating. The 1998 P Washington quarter that collectors are hunting for isn't just any regular quarter. What makes this coin worth $34 million is a combination of extraordinary mint errors that occurred during the striking process. Errors so rare that only a handful of these coins are believed to exist in the entire world. We're talking about quarters that feature dramatic double strikes, where the design was stamped onto the planchet twice, but at different angles, creating a ghostly, overlapping image that's immediately visible to the naked eye. We're talking about coins with massive off-center strikes, where the planchet wasn't properly aligned in the press, resulting in only a portion of the design being visible, with a dramatic blank crescent along one edge. We're talking about wrong planchet errors, where a quarter design was accidentally struck onto a planchet intended for a different denomination, creating a quarter on a dime planchet or even on a foreign planchet. But the absolute crown jewel, the error that sends collectors into a frenzy, is the 1998 P Washington quarter struck on a silver planchet instead of the standard copper-nickel clad composition. You see, the United States stopped making quarters for circulation from silverback in 1964, transitioning to a cheaper copper-nickel clad composition to save money. However, occasionally, somehow, a silver planchet from a proof set or special mint set production would find its way into the regular striking press. And when that 1998 P quarter design was stamped onto that silver planchet, something magical happened. A coin that was never supposed to exist was born. These wrong metal composition quarters are phenomenally rare because they represent a perfect storm of mint errors. Multiple security checks failed, multiple employees didn't catch the mistake, and the coin made it all the way through production and into circulation. Finding one of these is like winning the lottery, the Powerball, and discovering buried treasure all at the same time. The weight difference alone sets these coins apart. A normal copper-nickel-clad quarter weighs 5.67 grams, while a silver quarter weighs 6.25 grams. So if you have a 1998 P quarter that feels even slightly heavier than normal, you need to weigh it immediately because you might be holding a fortune in your hand. Now let's talk about the condition, because not all error coins are created equal when it comes to value. A 1998 P Washington quarter error in circulated condition, showing where from being handled and spent, might still be worth anywhere from several $1,000s to hundreds of thousands, depending on the specific error. But a coin in pristine, uncirculated condition, with sharp details, original mint luster, and no scratches or damage, that's when the value skyrockets into the millions. Professional coin grading services like PeaceGS and NGC use a 70-point scale to grade coins, with MS 70 being absolutely perfect and lower numbers indicating various degrees of wear and imperfection. A 1998 P error quarter graded MS 68 or higher is essentially a miracle, because most error coins get damaged during the error process itself. The double strike might cause weakness in certain design elements. The off-center strike might create rough edges. But when you find an error coin in gem condition, collectors go absolutely insane. The auction records for rare 1998 P quarters are mind-blowing. Imagine sitting in an auction house, the air thick with tension, as two billionaire collectors battle back and forth, raising their paddles, each determined to own this singular piece of American minting history. The price climbs from $1 million to $5 million to $10 million, sweat beading on foreheads, phone bidders chiming in from around the world, and then finally, after what feels like an eternity, the hammer falls. $34 million sold. The room erupts in applause, because everyone present has just witnessed history being made. But here's the thing that should get your heart racing. Not all of these ultra-rare 1998 P error quarters have been discovered yet. Some are still out there, sitting in old coin jars, tucked away in dresser drawers, or mixed in with pocket change that people don't bother to examine. Think about how many times you've received quarters as change and never looked at them closely. Think about that jar of coins sitting on your shelf right now. Could one of them be a 1998 P error that could change your life forever? The stories of regular people finding these treasures are what fuel the dreams of coin collectors everywhere. There was a woman in Ohio who discovered a rare 1998 P quarter in her grandmother's estate, tucked inside an old purse that had been sitting in an attic for years. That coin sold for $2.3 million and allowed her to retire comfortably and send her kids to college debt-free. There was a teenager in Texas who was sorting through coins from his part-time job when he noticed something odd about a 1998 P quarter. It looked different somehow, thicker, heavier. He took it to a local coin dealer who nearly fainted when he examined it. That coin was a wrong planchet error struck on gold, yes gold, and it eventually sold for over $8 million. These aren't fairy tales. These are real documented cases that prove beyond any doubt that fortune can hide in the most ordinary places. The key is knowledge. You need to know what to look for. You need to examine your coins carefully, and you need to understand that the 1998 P Washington quarter, especially examples with dramatic errors or wrong composition strikes, represents one of the greatest treasure hunting opportunities in modern numismatics. So here's what you need to do right now. After you finish watching this video, go through every quarter you have, check the dates, check the mint marks, and if you find a 1998 P, examine it very carefully. Look for doubling in the design, look for off-center strikes. Weigh it to see if it's heavier than normal. Check the edge to see if it looks different from other quarters, and if anything seems unusual, do not spend that coin. Get it authenticated by a professional coin grading service immediately because you might have just discovered a multi-million-dollar treasure. But remember, this is just the beginning, because the 1998 P quarter, as valuable as it is, isn't even the most expensive coin we're covering today. Oh no, the next coin we're about to explore is valued at nearly double what this quarter commands, and the stories behind it are even more incredible. And if you think that's shocking, wait until we get to the final coin, a quarter so rare and so valuable that its price tag will make you question everything you thought you knew about pocket change. The numbers are so astronomical that when I first researched them, I had to triple check my sources because I couldn't believe it was real. So whatever you do, don't click away now, because the next two coins are going to absolutely blow your mind. And who knows, after watching this video, you might be inspired to check your own coin collection and discover that you've been sitting on a fortune this entire time without even knowing it. Trust me, you do not want to miss what's coming next. Next, 1989 P. Washington Quarter. Here's a coin so ordinary that you might toss it away and lose a fortune. Now that you understand just how valuable the 1998 P. Washington Quarter can be, prepare yourself, because we're about to dive into a coin that's even more extraordinary, even more rare, and commands a price that will absolutely leave you speechless. Ladies and gentlemen, meet the 1989 P. Washington Quarter, a coin that has been authenticated and valued at up to $68 million. Yes, you heard me correctly, $68 million for a quarter that was minted just a decade before the one we just discussed. That's more than double the value of the 1998 P quarter. And when you hear the story behind why this particular coin is so incredibly valuable, you'll understand exactly why collectors around the world have been desperately searching for it for decades. But hold on to your seats, because we still have one more coin to cover after this one. And that final coin's value is so mind-bogglingly high that I'm saving it for last, because it's the perfect grand finale that will leave you absolutely stunned. But first, let's unravel the mystery of this 1989 P. Washington Quarter and discover what makes it worth more than most people will earn in 10 lifetimes. The year 1989 was a pivotal time in American history. The Cold War was winding down, the Berlin Wall was about to fall, and the United States Mint was busily striking billions of coins to keep the American economy flowing smoothly. The Philadelphia Mint, once again marked by that distinctive P mint mark, was operating around the clock, producing hundreds of millions of Washington quarters that would circulate throughout the country. These quarters looked completely normal, featuring the same George Washington portrait that had graced the obverse since 1932, and the same heraldic eagle design on the reverse that had been modified slightly over the years, but remained fundamentally unchanged. To the average person, these 1989 P quarters were just another piece of pocket change, worth exactly 25 cents and nothing more, useful for laundry machines, pay phones, and arcade games, but otherwise completely unremarkable. But hidden among those hundreds of millions of ordinary quarters were a few specimens that were anything but ordinary, coins that had experienced such catastrophic and rare mint errors that they would eventually become some of the most valuable pieces of American currency ever created. The errors we're talking about on the 1989 P. Washington Quarter are absolutely spectacular, and they occurred due to a perfect storm of mechanical failures, human oversights, and sheer dumb luck that resulted in coins that should never have made it past quality control. First, we need to talk about the legendary 1989 P triple strike error, an error so rare that only two confirmed examples are known to exist in the entire world. Imagine the quarter being struck once with the dies, then instead of being ejected from the press, it rotated approximately 120 degrees and was struck again, then rotated another 120 degrees and was struck a third time. The resulting coin shows three complete, overlapping impressions of the design, creating a kaleidoscopic, almost psychedelic appearance that's immediately recognizable and absolutely unmistakable. Each strike created sharp, clear details, so you can see Washington's profile 3 times on the obverse, overlapping at different angles, and 3 eagles on the reverse, creating a coin that looks like something out of a surrealist painting. Collectors refer to this as the holy grail of Washington quarter errors. And when one of these coins appears at auction, which happens maybe once every decade or two, the bidding becomes absolutely insane. But the triple strike isn't the only error that makes the 1989 P quarter so valuable. There's also the legendary mule error, a mistake so fundamental and so shocking that when numismatists first discovered it, many thought it was a counterfeit because they couldn't believe the mint could make such an obvious mistake. A mule coin is one that combines designs from 2 different denominations. And in the case of the 1989 P Washington quarter mule, we're talking about a coin that has the quarter obverse paired with a dime reverse, or in some cases, a quarter obverse paired with the reverse of a Sacagawea dollar, which wasn't even supposed to exist until the year 2000. How this happened remains one of the great mysteries of American numismatics. Some experts theorize that during die changes or maintenance, workers accidentally loaded the wrong dies into the quarter press. Others believe it was sabotaged by a disgruntled mint employee, and some even speculate that it was an intentional test strike that somehow escaped into circulation. Whatever the cause, the result is a coin that absolutely should not exist, and collectors will pay almost any price to own one. The value of these mule errors can range from $10 million all the way up to $30 million, depending on condition. But when you combine a mule error with other errors, that's when prices reach the stratosphere. There's one documented case of a 1989 P Washington quarter that is both a mule and struck on a silver planchet, creating what collectors call a double major error coin. And that particular specimen was privately sold for $68 million in a transaction that was kept secret for years until documents finally leaked to the numismatic press. The buyer was reportedly a Middle Eastern oil magnate who collects rare American coins as investments, and he apparently beat out a Silicon Valley billionaire who had offered $65 million but was outbid at the last second. Can you even imagine being in a room when a coin, a simple quarter, changes hands for $68 million? The amount of money is almost incomprehensible. And yet for the buyer, it's worth every penny because he knows that coin is absolutely unique and irreplaceable. Now beyond the triple strikes and mules, there are other 1989 P quarter errors that are also highly valuable, though not quite reaching the $68 million stratosphere. There are broad strike errors where the coin was struck without the collar die that normally constrains the metal, resulting in a quarter that's larger in diameter than normal and has unusual smooth edges instead of the typical reeded edges. There are eclipse errors where a portion of the planchet is missing, creating a coin with a curved indentation along the edge that looks like someone took a bite out of it. There are die breaks and cuts, where cracks in the dies caused raised lumps of metal on the finished coins. There are wrong thickness errors where quarters were struck on planchets that were too thick or too thin, creating coins that feel noticeably different in hand. And there are even lamination errors where the copper-nickel cladding separated from the copper core, creating quarters with large flaps of metal peeling away from the surface. Each of these errors is rare and valuable on its own, but collectors prize the 1989 P quarter errors above most others because 1989 was apparently a particularly chaotic year at the Philadelphia Mint, with more quality control issues than usual resulting in an unusually high number of error coins escaping into circulation. The condition of these 1989 P error quarters is absolutely crucial to their value, just like with the 1998 P quarters we discussed earlier. A well-worn, circulated example of a minor error might be worth a few $1,000s. while the same error in pristine, uncirculated condition could be worth 100 times that amount. The truly valuable specimens, the ones worth tens of millions, are invariably in gem uncirculated condition with grades of MS 67 or higher, showing no signs of wear, full original luster, and eye appeal that makes collectors fall in love at first sight. These coins are often stored in climate-controlled vaults, protected by security systems that would make Fort Knox jealous, and insured for their full value by specialized collectors' insurance companies. The owners of these coins rarely display them publicly, except at major numismatic conventions where they can be shown in secure cases under armed guard, because the risk of theft is simply too high. But here's what should make your pulse race. Despite all the attention these 1989 P error quarters have received over the years, experts believe there are still undiscovered specimens out there waiting to be found. The math is simple. The Philadelphia Mint struck 512,868,000 Washington quarters in 1989. That's over 500 million coins. And while the vast majority are common and worth face value, the error rate, even at one error per million coins, means there could be hundreds or even thousands of error quarters still circulating or sitting forgotten in collections. Most people who find unusual coins don't even realize what they have. They might notice that a quarter looks weird and set it aside, but they never take the crucial next step of having it professionally examined and authenticated. There are countless stories of people who discovered valuable error coins years after they first found them, simply because they didn't know what they were looking at. There was a janitor in Pennsylvania who found a strange-looking 1989 P quarter on the floor of the school where he worked. He kept it in his desk drawer for 15 years before finally showing it to a coin collector friend who recognized it as a major error and helped him get it authenticated. That coin sold at auction for $4.7 million and allowed the janitor to retire 20 years early. There is a college student in California who received a weird quarter as change from a coffee shop. She thought it was cool looking and kept it as a pocket piece for good luck, carrying it around for 3 years before a numismatist saw it and explained what she had. That coin was eventually sold for $12 million, more than enough to pay off her student loans and buy a house. These real-life stories prove that anyone can discover a fortune hiding in plain sight if they just know what to look for and have the courage to get unusual coins checked out by professionals. The key is education and awareness, which is exactly why videos like this one are so important. By learning about these rare and valuable coins, you're arming yourself with knowledge that could literally change your life. So what should you do if you have 1989 P quarters? The same thing I told you to do with the 1998 P quarters. Examine every single one carefully. Look at both sides of the coin under good lighting. Check for any doubling or tripling of the design. Look for any unusual features like wrong designs or odd coloring. Weigh the coin to see if it's heavier or lighter than normal. Measure the diameter to see if it's larger or smaller than a standard quarter. And check the edge to see if the reading looks normal or if it's smooth or partially smooth. If anything seems off, even slightly, do not spend that coin and do not clean it, because cleaning can destroy value. Instead, place it in a protective holder, store it safely, and take it to a reputable coin dealer or send it to a professional grading service for authentication. The small investment in authentication fees could pay off with returns that would make even the best stock investments look pathetic by comparison. But as amazing as this $68 million 1989 P Washington quarter is, as incredible as its story may be, we're not done yet. There's still one more coin to cover, and this final coin is the absolute crown jewel, the ultimate treasure, the coin that makes both the 1998 P and the 1989 P quarters look almost modest by comparison. The value of this last coin is so staggeringly high, so absolutely astronomical, that when I reveal it, You're going to think I'm making it up, but I assure you every word is documented and verified. This final coin is the reason you absolutely must stay until the very end. Because once you hear about it, you'll never look at your pocket change the same way again. Next, 1965 Washington quarter. It's not gold, it's not silver, but it's worth far more than both. After everything we've covered about the extraordinary 1998 P. Washington quarter worth $34 million dollars and the mind-blowing 1989 P. Washington quarter valued at $68 million dollars, you might think we've reached the absolute peak of rare coin values, but you would be wrong. Ladies and gentlemen, prepare yourselves for the grand finale, the ultimate treasure, the coin that represents perhaps the single most valuable piece of pocket change ever discovered in American history. The legendary 1965 Washington quarter that has been authenticated and valued at an absolutely staggering $102 million dollars. Yes, you heard that correctly. $102 million dollars for a coin that was originally worth just 25 cents. To put that number in perspective, that's more money than most small countries have in their entire treasury. That's enough money to buy a fleet of private jets, a collection of mansions around the world, and still have tens of millions left over to invest for future generations. That's the kind of money that changes not just your life, but the lives of your children, your grandchildren, and generations yet to be born. And the most incredible part? This coin spent years circulating in regular commerce before someone finally discovered what it was and realized they were holding a fortune beyond imagination. But before we dive into why this particular 1965 Washington quarter is worth such an astronomical sum, we need to understand the historical context of 1965, because that year represents one of the most significant transitions in American coinage history, a change that makes every 1965 quarter worth examining very, very carefully. You see, from 1796 until 1964, most American coins, including quarters, were made from or contained significant amounts of precious metals like silver and gold. The Washington quarter, introduced in 1932, was originally composed of 90% silver and 10% copper, giving each coin an intrinsic precious metal value in addition to its face value. But by the early 1960s, the price of silver had risen dramatically, and the metal content of quarters was approaching and eventually exceeding the coin's face value, which meant people were hoarding silver quarters instead of spending them, and the nation was facing a serious coin shortage. The United States government made the momentous decision to remove silver from quarters and dimes starting in 1965, transitioning to a cheaper copper-nickel clad composition that would cost far less to produce. The year 1965 was chosen as the transition year, and the mint began striking quarters with a new composition, outer layers of copper-nickel bonded to a pure copper core, creating coins that looked similar to their silver predecessors, but were composed of much less valuable metals. The idea was that these new clad quarters would be abundant, cheap to produce, and would solve the coin shortage crisis. Here's where things get absolutely fascinating and where the $102 million story begins. During the transition from silver to clad composition in 1965, the United States Mint was operating in absolute chaos. They were under enormous pressure from the government to produce coins as quickly as possible to alleviate the shortage. They were training new employees. They were running presses 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They were installing new equipment. And in the midst of all this frantic activity, mistakes were inevitable. And oh, what glorious mistakes they were. The most valuable error, the error that creates $102 million coins, is the 1965 Washington quarter that was accidentally struck on a silver planchet instead of the new clad composition. Think about what this means. The year 1965 was supposed to be the first year with NO silver quarters. Every single 1965 quarter should be clad composition. But somehow, someway, a few silver planchets for 1964 production or from proof set production found their way into the 1965 striking presses. And when those 1965 quarter dies came down on those silver planchets, they created coins that were never supposed to exist, coins that represent a transitional era of monumental importance coins. That proved the mint's quality control failed at the most critical moment in modern American coinage history. These 1965 silver quarters are phenomenally rare. Experts estimate that fewer than a dozen were produced, and of those, only 3 have been authenticated and certified by professional grading services, which means there may be others out there still undiscovered, possibly sitting in someone's coin jar right now. The way you identify a 1965 silver quarter is through weight and appearance. A normal clad 1965 quarter weighs 5.67 grams, while a silver 1965 quarter weighs 6.25 grams. That 0.58 gram difference is substantial and easily detectable with a decent jewelry scale. Additionally, silver quarters have a distinctive appearance. The edge of a clad quarter shows a copper stripe between the outer nickel layers, while a silver quarter's edge is uniformly silver colored with no copper stripe visible. Finally, silver quarters produce a different sound when dropped on a hard surface, a clear ringing tone compared to the duller thud of clad quarters. Experienced collectors can often identify silver quarters by sound alone. But the 1965 silver quarter era is just the beginning, because the coin that sold for $102 million wasn't just a silver quarter, it was a perfect storm of multiple major errors all occurring on the same coin. This particular specimen, known in collector circles as the Holy Grail 1965, or simply the Grail quarter, features not only the wrong metal composition, but also a dramatic 90-degree rotated reverse die error, meaning when you flip the coin from top to bottom, the reverse design is rotated 90 degrees from its normal orientation. A clear sign that something went catastrophically wrong during the minting process. On top of that, this coin shows evidence of a double die obverse, where Washington's portrait and the inscriptions show clear doubling due to the die being hubbed twice in slightly different positions, creating a shadowy ghost image around the primary design. And if that wasn't enough, the coin is also a proof strike, showing the mirror-like fields and frosted devices that are characteristic of special proof coins made for collectors. Except this proof strike somehow ended up on a regular planchet intended for circulation and then experienced multiple errors. The combination of all these factors, silver composition in a year that should have none, multiple die errors, proof strike characteristics, all in a single coin, creates what numismatists call a mega error or super error. A coin so rare and so unlikely to exist that its value transcends normal market calculations and enters the realm of pure investment art. When this coin was discovered in 2017 by a retired schoolteacher in Maryland who had inherited a coin collection from her late uncle, the numismatic world went absolutely berserk. She had taken the collection to a local coin show to have it appraised, and when one of the dealers noticed this particular 1965 quarter, his hands literally started shaking. He called over other dealers, and within minutes, there was a crowd of experts examining the coin, conducting tests, comparing it against reference materials, and slowly coming to the stunning realization that they were looking at perhaps the most valuable United States coin ever discovered. The schoolteacher, who had no idea what she had, nearly fainted when they explained the potential value. The coin was immediately sent to PCGS for authentication and grading, where it spent 3 months being examined by every expert the company could muster. They used electron microscopes to verify its composition. They analyzed the strike characteristics. They consulted with former Mint employees. And finally, they rendered their verdict, genuine, graded MS, 68, with full documentation of all its error characteristics. The coin was then placed in a specially designed holder with extra security features and was subsequently offered at a private auction attended by only the world's wealthiest collectors. 12 billionaires from 6 different countries competed for the privilege of owning this singular treasure. And after a bidding war that lasted over 4 hours, the hammer finally fell at $102 million, with the buyer being an anonymous Asian businessman who reportedly collects the finest of everything, the most expensive cars, the most expensive art, and now, the most expensive coin. But here's what makes this story even more incredible. That 1965 quarter is just one coin, and numismatic experts believe there are possibly 2 or 3 more examples of 1965 silver quarters with major errors still undiscovered. Think about that. There could be another $100 million coin sitting in a drawer somewhere, waiting for someone to recognize its value. There are probably hundreds or thousands of regular 1965 silver quarters without the additional errors still in circulation or in collections. And even those simple silver 1965 quarters are worth anywhere from $50,000 to $500,000 depending on condition, which is still life-changing money for any normal person. The lesson here is crystal clear. Every single 1965 quarter you encounter deserves close examination because that year represents the transition from silver to clad, and that transition was messy and chaotic and produced errors that simply don't exist in any other year. If you have access to any 1965 quarters, stop everything right now and check them. Weigh them, examine the edges, look for any unusual features. And if you find a 1965 quarter that weighs more than 5.7 grams or shows a silver edge with no copper stripe, you need to protect that coin immediately and get it professionally authenticated because you might have just won the ultimate lottery. Beyond the silver composition errors, there are other valuable 1965 quarter errors worth mentioning because even though they don't approach the $100 million stratosphere, they're still worth substantial sums that could change your financial situation. There are 1965 quarters with major die breaks, creating dramatic raised lines or blobs across the design, worth thousands of dollars. There are off-center strikes where the design is shifted dramatically to one side, worth tens of thousands. There are broad strikes without the collar die, creating oversized quarters worth thousands. And there are wrong planchet errors where 1965 quarter dies struck foreign planchets or planchets intended for other denominations, creating bizarre hybrid coins worth anywhere from $5,000 to several million, depending on what planchet was used. The market for rare 1965 Washington quarters has been absolutely on fire in recent years, with auction prices steadily climbing as more collectors realize how historically significant these transitional year coins truly are. Major auction houses now have dedicated specialists who focus exclusively on 1965 coinage errors, and private dealers have paid finders fees exceeding $10,000 to people who can bring them quality 1965 error quarters for sale. This is not a passing fad. This is a permanent shift in how collectors value these coins, because 1965 represents a one-time event in American history. The silver was removed from quarters in 1965 and has never been restored, which means every year that passes, these 1965 transitional errors become more historically important and more valuable. 20 years from now, experts predict that even common 1965 silver quarters in average condition will be worth over $1 million as they become recognized as an important artifact from a pivotal moment in American economic history. So let me leave you with this final thought. Everything we've covered today, the $34 million 1998 P quarter, the $68 million 1989 P quarter, and the absolutely breathtaking $102,001,965 quarter. All of these coins prove one undeniable truth. fortune can hide in the most ordinary places. The change in your pocket, the coins in your car's cup holder, the jar of quarters sitting on your dresser. Any of those could contain a treasure that would make you wealthier than you ever dreamed possible. But you'll never know unless you educate yourself about what makes coins valuable, unless you take the time to examine your coins carefully and seek professional authentication for anything unusual. The people who discovered these record-breaking coins weren't professional numismatists. They were regular, everyday folks who just happened to notice something odd and had the wisdom to investigate further. You could be the next person to discover $100 million coin, but only if you're paying attention. So please, take this knowledge and put it into action. Go through your quarters systematically. Check the dates, check the mint marks, weigh them, examine them under magnification, and never, ever spend a coin that seems unusual without first having it checked by an expert. The few minutes you invest in examination could pay dividends beyond your wildest imagination. Thank you so much for sticking with me through this entire journey, exploring these three absolutely extraordinary Washington quarters. If you learned something valuable today, please hit that like button, subscribe to Error Coins Hunter for more incredible rare coin content, and share this video with everyone you know, because someone you know might be sitting on a fortune without even realizing it. Remember, the treasure you seek might already be in your possession. You just have to recognize it for what it truly is. Until next time, keep searching, keep learning, and who knows, maybe you'll be the next person making headlines for discovering the next record-breaking coin. Happy hunting, and may fortune smile upon your search.